Welcome to Take Home Torah, Teitzei edition. Well, we're coming to the end of Deuteronomy. Moses is getting ready to wrap up the longest sermon ever. And in this week's parashah, we finish up this review that he's been giving to the children of Israel, to these people who he shepherded through the wilderness for 40 years, to this generation that was born in that wilderness and is now going to go into the land that was gifted to them without him. And what caught my eye in this week's parashah, as we end this whole section, actually not just for our parashah, but for going back from the bulk of Deuteronomy that we've seen, that we've read. What caught my eye was the last one, the one that ends this section. I mean, what grand law, what summation, what is it that will really put the coda, the ending to this part that will make people remember? What is it? Deuteronomy 25, 13 to 15. You shall not have in your pouch alternate weights, larger and smaller. You shall not have in your house alternate measures, a larger and a smaller. You must have completely honest weights and completely honest measures if you are going to live long on that soil, on that ground that Adonai, your God, is giving to you. Business, weights, measures, really? That's the grand ending to this? There's got to be something more here. Now, Rashi just wants to make sure you understand what's happening here. So he again explains, to make it clear, that you do not have a large measure for when you're buying something, and make that same measure smaller when you're selling it. You have to be honest. The honesty is the key. Just wants to make sure you understand that. But then I looked further and I said, you know something? It's not just about buying and selling, because you can't even have it in your house. Whether you use it or not, it cannot exist. You must not have it in your house. That tells me that this living honestly, making sure everything is fair, is not just about what goes on outside. It's also how you live your life, what goes on in your house and in your spaces. It's in all parts of your life. Because yes, you will live long. How will you live long? What does that mean? Ibn Ezra wants you to know that every righteous society will endure. Because righteousness, he says, is like a building where deceit is a destructive force which can topple a wall in an instant. The Torah is telling us that there are no double standards. And that applies to matters not just of weights and measures, but of justice. In writing about this parashah last year, Rabbi Nehemiah Polin, a professor of Jewish thought at the Rabbinical School at Hebrew College, mentioned there's another kind of weighing, the weighing of evidence in criminal legal proceedings. Our criminal justice system is supposed to be blind. It's not supposed to see greater, lesser, rich and poor. Everything's supposed to be honest and equal. But we know, unfortunately, that that is not always the case. Rabbi Poland says, the only way to make our society, to make sure our society thrives and continues to be secure on that ground that we have been given, that we have been gifted. The only way to make sure our society thrives and continues to be secure in that is to ensure that all of us, rich or poor, celebrity or unknown, longtime citizen or recent immigrant, and if he was writing it today, I imagine he might add, regardless of the color of your skin or your gender identity, that all are judged by the same criteria. And then I look just a couple of verses down to the end of the parashah. And there was the piece of Torah that Rabbi Lou taught often. That unfortunately seems to be an important teaching that we have to hear every year. Deuteronomy 25, 17 to 19. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left Egypt. How, undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary and cut down all the stragglers in your rear. Therefore, when Adonai your God grants you safety from all your enemies around you in the land that Adonai your God is giving you for your heritage, as your heritage portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. Now, the age-old question when studying this part is often, how do you blot out a memory and then not forget? But Rabbi Lou taught, yes, you can blot out the memory of Amalek, but never forget that Amalek was able to cut down those stragglers because you allowed those stragglers to be there in the back with no support. You allowed those stragglers the lesser measure while you had the larger one. And so it's important to remember, we must not forget that we need that equal playing field. We need to have that honesty in our weights and in our measures and in our justice. And in that way, if we maintain that honesty, no one will be left behind. Shabbos.